Hello, my name is Professor Silvester Henderson. I am the CEO of Professor for Life Incorporated. As many of you know, I have the wonderful opportunity of interviewing academics all over the world, nationally and internationally, business professionals, and I am so honored this afternoon to interview Bishop Pastor, who was once a student of mine at UC Berkeley, and he is an acclaimed bishop. It is Bishop Tyron Delbert Robinson from the Full Gospel Baptist Church of New Orleans, Louisiana. Welcome, Bishop Robinson.
Well, thank you so very much, Professor. Let me just make it clear. This is my professor. I love him so very much. He is such a brilliant, awesome man of God, has spoken tremendously into my life and the life of others. I would even say he has fathered some people into another dimension of life, and just so happy to be here with you this afternoon. I appreciate you so much for having me on your network, and congratulations on all that you have going as well.
Thank you once again, sir. Can you introduce yourself to our digital media academic world? Tell us where you grew up, share something about your academic journey, and where did you go to college, all those wonderful things.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, again, just my government name, I am Tyron Delbert Robinson, and currently I'm the senior pastor of the Greater St. Stephen Full Gospel Baptist Church of New Orleans, Louisiana. I am so privileged to be married to the love of my life, co-pastor, Elder Jasmine Morton Robinson, and we are the successor to her natural parents, Bishop Paul S. Morton and Dr. Debra B. Morton. And we're enjoying this journey. We've been doing this now for 4 years. But prior to that, I spent 20 years pastoring in Southern California, a number of churches. In fact, Professor, my wife and I, we were talking the other day, and she said, honey, you got to make sure you explain it, because when you tell people that you pastored 7 churches in Los Angeles, they're going to say, oh my God, this young man got put out of every church. but what happened, I just kept transitioning, and God kept promoting me. Founder of some churches, I was called to or voted into other churches. But all of that started as a result of my journey at the University of California at Berkeley. Now, I'm a native of Southern California. I grew up in a city right outside of Los Angeles, a city called Carson, California. There are about 100,000 residents. It's a suburb of the metropolis there. And God favored me to go to UC Berkeley in 1994. And that's actually where I met Professor Henderson. At that point in time, he was the only ethnomusicologist that I know of in the country at a PWI, a predominantly white university on the Division I level. And he was really doing it big. I want to say historically that I'm one of the only persons that was in his choir as a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior. He told me he did. Yeah, you told me on night one, hey, listen, you can't sing all the way, but I don't let freshmen in my choir, but I like you. And I said, okay. And I love it. I mean, the discipline has helped me to this very day. And so through all that musical training and things of that nature, I learned more than just singing in a choir, but I learned disciplines that I take into the pastorate, disciplines that I take into business. And it was one of the most fruitful and productive journeys I had during my time at UC Berkeley.
And what was your major at UC Berkeley?
This is so terrible. I majored in social welfare, and I had a minor in anthropology. And the truth of the matter is, The only social welfare I ended up doing was pastoring churches for the last 25 years, because immediately when I graduated, I was thrusted into the senior pastorate, and there I have been ever since. So I am a trained social worker as a result of the Haviland School of Social Welfare there at UC Berkeley. I think the former Haviland School of Social Welfare. They've changed the name since, and so perhaps one day maybe I'll become a social worker, but for right now, I'm a supernatural, spiritual social worker in the body of Christ.
Wow. Well, you know what? You have made Bishop Robinson, you have become an international and national icon. Wow. That is such a beautiful thing. As a man who's going to be 65 years old this year, it is so nice for me to see young people that were part of my academic journey, to see how God has blessed them, and how many of you, especially those students for UC Berkeley, have just become legends in all type of fields, from judges to attorneys, doctors, heart specialists, theologians, and what have you. So I just want to say I am so proud of you. Oh, wow. I am so proud of you. It is just really an old man's joy to see you, and I just deeply love you. And I thank God for your wife and all of the communities that have supported you. Can you describe some of your work and obligations as the pastor of Greater St. Stephen's Full Gospel Baptist Church of New Orleans? What is your typical day like?
Ooh, my goodness. I am enjoying an accidental off day here in New Orleans because it's Mardi Gras. Gras Day, and I didn't realize until first thing this morning that it's a state holiday here in Louisiana. So this is a good day to talk about a typical day, because it's actually an atypical day. Typically, Tuesdays are the busiest days for us. It's almost like the first day of the week, and so I'm thrusted anywhere from executive board meetings, trustee board meetings, community service meetings, of course, all of the spiritual activity week to week, ministering to our congregation in several different ways. I'm constantly on the phone, constantly on Zoom, sometimes anywhere from an intermittent 10 hours a day, because with the size of the congregation, the scope and the shape of my work kind of takes on its own momentum on a regular basis. Now, I have great help around me, but as a new pastor, we're establishing rhythm, we're establishing cadence amongst our staff. And then on top of that, being a husband, I'm a son, I'm a brother, and all of those kinds of things. So when you put all of that into consideration, I have a lot going on. Also, I serve as an auxiliary bishop to the Bishop's Council of the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship. And Professor Henderson, I think this is an interesting fact, because when I was in your class in 1997, one of the songs that you introduced had been put forth by the newly formed Full Gospel Baptist Church. That song was "Lord, I Will Stand Until." Now, I tried.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I tried out for the solo, and I didn't get the lead on the song, and I was dismayed and, oh my goodness, heartbroken, but I still got an A in the class. So
that's right.
But here's the thing. It was through that singing of that song, I went out to, in Berkeley, there was a music store called Reed's Music Store.
That's right.
And yeah, and I purchased the actual CD. I opened the CD up, and I find out, I'm reading the history there, and in those days, it wasn't Google. I think UC Berkeley had like LexisNexis.
That's right.
Some kind of search engine like that. And I looked everything up and found out that Full Gospel was brand new. Well, this is a true story. The young lady I see on the inside of the CD cover, she is now my wife. She was singing on the album, and she is the daughter of the presiding bishop, the founding presiding bishop. Well, needless to say, that summer, I fly to New Orleans on our time off, and here I am some 27 years later, the senior pastor of the church that birthed the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship and produced that CD that you recommended all those years ago. So it's a weird, connected history to that. So that's just one of the things. And again, my duties as a council bishop keeps me pretty busy as well on a regular basis. So the ministry is both local and global. It's an internationally known ministry. We affectionately refer to it as the mother church of Full Gospel. So both Bishop Morton and his wife, they are my in-loves, I call them. They are alive and well, and we're working hand in hand, keeping the legacy going. And so I hope that answered the question.
It did.
We have a lot happening in the course of one day or even 1 week.
And isn't Full Gospel like one of the largest African American church conference in the world, or one of the largest?
Yeah, it's one of the largest, most definitely one of the strongest, and one of the most innovative. We're now under the leadership of Bishop Joseph Warren Walker out of Nashville, Tennessee. And we're continuing to do progressive things. Again, while it's as progressive as it is, the miraculous phenomena is it is one of the youngest reformations when you put them up against the other ones that are existing. But we continue to do some amazing and phenomenal things. And so I'm just really, I'm in awe of God that he would even give me an opportunity to be a part of this in the way that I am. I mean, from Southern California to New Orleans, you're talking about from the West Coast to the Gulf Coast. This is nothing short of a miracle. I pinch myself often. I can't believe I'm here. I'm still in conversation with God. Like, how did I even get here? This is crazy, but I'm enjoying every moment of the ride.
Well, you can attest that to your Christian dedication, your enormous intellect, your love of God, and your ability to deal with people.
Wow, bless you.
You've always had, even when you were a student of mine some many years ago, you always was kind of like the thread that could get along with everybody.
I tried.
And that's a beautiful thing. Explain to me, if you would, Bishop Robinson, some of your work when you were the CEO and pastor of the organization Changing a Generation Full Gospel Baptist Church. And what's the difference between the Greater St. Stephen and that organization?
So Changing a Generation and Greater St. Stephen are tied together.
Oh, I see.
And let me say this very quickly, because you said CEO and pastor. So our CEO is Bishop Morton. I was the senior pastor of one church in 2 states.
Oh, I see.
One church in 2 states. And a lot of people are like, huh? How can you lead 2 churches simultaneously? And we put together a system real simple that my in-laws were semi-retired. So as my wife and I would minister in New Orleans, they would minister in Atlanta because the church was located in Atlanta. So Greater St. Stephen is in New Orleans, and Changing a Generation is in Atlanta, currently now in Decatur. So we would go back and forth on first and third Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're flip-flopping, consistently going back and forth. And so the scope of the work really to understand how the churches were linked. Changing a Generation was birthed out of Katrina, the horrible hurricane that took place. In fact, this is the 20th year of the Katrina anniversary. And so what happened at the time, because Greater St. Stephen was so large and the hurricane was so devastating, the church was divided across 33 states. People were taking refuge all over the country. Bishop Morton at that time was flying anywhere they could find out that there was a Greater St. Stephen's member. He would go there to minister to them, to minister reconciliation and what have you. So what ended up happening, the majority of people settled in Atlanta. And as a result, he started changing a generation. And so he left his pastorate at Greater St. Stephen 33 years later, planted his wife there, and he assumed the pastorate of the Atlanta church, which is now changing a generation. The way that I and my wife come into play, it was time. He wanted to retire. And so in retirement, his wife, his daughter rather, goes to Southern California. How did that work? Well, she was in New Orleans I don't want to mess the timeline up because she'll see it and then she wants to start fact checking and all of that. So she was in New Orleans. We started dating. We get married, and ultimately she's in Southern California. Her children were there. She had already had a stint in Southern California as well. And so I was pastoring my 7th church at the time when we got married, and she came and my church accepted me and we began to assume leadership there. I was senior pastor. She was first lady. She came on, became the worship leader. I mean, we're having a glorious time. And then all of a sudden, boom, the pandemic hits. And in the middle of the pandemic, we also are making the transition to the South, where we become the leaders of one church in 2 states. Let the flip-flopping begin. I mean, we're going back and forth. So that is how, I think that's important, because now to understand the scope of the work, to be very clear, it's more than preaching. It's more than the business of the church. We also are a very kingdom community-minded church. In Atlanta, we had food pantries, clothes closets for the less fortunate, where we would minister to them on a weekly basis. I did that for 3 years as senior pastor there. The numbers escape me now, but pardon me, on a weekly basis, Professor, we were ministering to hundreds of people in a pocket of time. I mean, it's just like a roving line of people coming to get food and clothes and ministry. And even we became a conduit for helping people. It's a lot of mental health recommendations that we were able to make as a result. And then in New Orleans, likewise, but in a different manner, Greater St. Stephen is very, very community-based. In fact, we've started a ministry entitled PACE, Political Advancement, Community Empowerment, because Greater St. Stephen is at the fabric of a lot of the community-based political activity. And when I got here, Southern California and New Orleans is night and day as it relates to the community involvement of the church. So, of course, you know,
imagine that.
Yeah, in California, they're like, we got this. We don't need to hear anything from the church unless you're saying it the way we want you to say it. And in New Orleans, there's a lot of involvement. You'll even see local politicians frequenting local churches on a regular basis, being members, being just regular people. And so when I got here, the work was so enormous. It was almost overwhelming. And I was praying and I said, Lord, I can't keep up the pace. These are the words I said in prayer. And he, in turn, gave me a ministry called PACE. and told me to name it political advancement, community empowerment. And so my mother-in-law oversees that ministry, and she's doing an awesome job, and it really keeps us connected to the community. I mean, I am overwhelmed, especially on holidays, things of that nature. Holidays from time to time, we'll do partnerships. I'm most proud of this work that we're doing with Tulane University.
Okay.
Professor, they come into our college, into our church, they set up shop, and they do free testing for cardiovascular prevention, cardiovascular disease prevention, free testing for hypertension, diabetes, and they do it right in the church. So imagine that you're a member of the church and you can get these free scanning services. We just put on a major community event where we had one of the leading cardiologists come out, address our church. I mean, it was just spectacular to be able to say, not only do we pray for the sick spiritually, but we also provide solutions and strategies that will help our community not fall deeper into this pit of disease that leads to death. And so I've said a lot. I hope I've answered a lot.
Oh, no. You've answered a lot, and everything you said has been very essential, and I appreciate it. God bless you.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me, well, you kind of answered it, because I was going to ask you, how does your work as a trained, biblically based social justice advocate help communities of colors? But you kind of answered it.
Well, yeah, I would love to even go deeper. I have a heart and a passion for African American men, particularly the generation that is coming behind us. And I've been in work even with some of our local councilmen and our congressmen to see how in the next year or so can we formally launch some programming that keeps our hands on these young men. Now, I mean, it used to be a time when you would say, I come out of the 90s, people would be like, that's no time ago. But when I tell my kids, you know, they'll be like, Dad, oh my God, you were born in the 70s? You're old. But I bring that up to say, I came out of the shirt and tie era, where a black man wasn't afraid to wear a shirt and tie. And I do realize many churches now, they've adopted and have taken on casual dress. And I have no problem with that. But because of my assignment to young men, my life's purpose to young men of color, African American men in particular, I remain in shirt and tie because I want to show them it is possible to rub elbows with someone who is on an executive level, if you will.
That's right.
That can speak hope into you, and you don't have to wear your pants below the nape of your behind.
That's
you don't
right.
have to, be dressed slouchy and sloppy, and rappers are not the only ones that can be looked up to as heroes. And
that's right.
And rappers, really, that's generalizing. Whoever you look up to, if they're not a positive role model, there are other alternatives. And I really try to present myself as such. I'm constantly pushing education amongst young African American men, because so many of them, the hardest thing is they'll start their education and drop out for a variety of reasons. And I guess that does say that I'm using my social welfare background.
That's right.
To some degree. But and then the mental health piece. I mean, at least every month, somebody's going to come up on my dossier, on my daily agenda, ministering to them for mental health. And one of the greatest testimonies, Professor, that I've had currently, I moved to a new area in New Orleans, and there's a local grocery store here. And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, man, I don't want to I go to the grocery store because they have a phenomenal New Orleans cuisine hot bar. I mean, the food there is straight out of grandma's kitchen. And so when I'm telling you, when I go, it's kind of like my time to decompress, if you will. And I'm looking at this young man, and he has one of the uniforms for the store on, and I'm like, I promise you, it looked like he was at the altar. He was at my altar on Sunday. So I said, I'm not gonna, I'm notorious. My wife is a native of New Orleans. I am a native Southern California native in that sometimes we'll speak, sometimes we won't. In New Orleans, everybody speaks and tells their whole life story. And so I said, I'm not speaking today. I want to hurry up and go eat this fried chicken and let narcolepsy and itis have its way.
That's right.
Professor, he comes up to me and he says, Bishop, I thought that was you. I wanted to let you know when you laid hands on me on Sunday, that feeling of suicide and anxiety lifted off of me. This is my first day back at work.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, wow. You talk about exhilaration and motivation. His mom comes up to me and says, whatever you did, thank you so much. Please keep doing it. It's like he's a different person. And it goes back to that old gospel song. If I can help somebody
That's right.
as I travel along, then my living is not in vain. And so,
yes, sir.
Without going into the depth of what I have to do, even academically or scholastically, to be a help to somebody, it's little small moments, small testimonies like that. The hugs that I get from young 7th and 8th graders on Sundays, just coming up, hey, Bishop, just wanted to let you know I'm a junior deacon here. I'm just letting you know I love serving here, et cetera, et cetera. That lets me know I'm on the right track with it. And so that was a great question. That got to my heart there. I can talk about this all day because it's really what I love doing.
God bless you. Can you share your travel into the ministry? Did you always, before you were actually called by God, did you always have this feeling? I would like to ask you if you could briefly share your travel into the ministry.
Well, let me reverse the answer and then come at it straight. If you've ever heard Professor Silvester Carl Henderson play the piano, you have to know that it goes beyond whenever he said he started. It's almost like music is in your blood. There's no doubt about it. I used to watch Professor. He would play and direct the choir with his left hand, and when you weren't getting the note right, he would, come on, get up under the note. Get up under the note. And he would never miss a beat. The multitasking of the keyboard used to throw me for a loop. And I'm like, this is a mutant professor, more like prodigy. Now I bring that up to say anybody that's doing anything at an experted professional level, particularly as it relates to a vocation, the arts, things of that nature, it's almost like you have it's born into you, or rather you're born with it, should I say. And I believe ministry for me, I tease now, I was born January 11th, 1976 on a Sunday. And I started teasing and said, I told my mother not long ago, I said, Mama, why did you birthed me into the church? I know you did. It was intentional. You had this up your sleeve the whole time. You birthed me into the church and you tricked me into becoming a preacher. And we just laughed about it. But very truthfully, I won't say that I had dreams or visions of being a preacher, but in my heart of hearts, I always knew I would do something, even as a child, as it related to public life. Whether at one point in time I thought I would be an attorney. One point in time, I thought I would be a professional athlete, and then height began to work against me. And so when I came to UC Berkeley, I was already a minister. I was already a licensed minister. I began ministry, Professor, and I don't think we've ever talked about this. I started preaching right out of high school.
Wow.
Now, it was in high school where I felt like I was at an impasse between athletics and doing ministry, because in high school I was doing some phenomenal things. Again, just my size kept playing against me, and many of my high school classmates, in fact, there's one in particular, a few others that come to mind, but one right now, he and I graduated same class. He's definitely on his way to the NBA Hall of Fame. And I went to a Catholic all boys high school in Watts in Los Angeles, South Los Angeles. And I began preaching in the 11th grade. And the thing, looking back now that I've studied, I've done my Episcopal studies to become a bishop. And in talking to my Episcopal professor and understanding the graces, I hope I'm not too controversial on your network.
Oh, no.
Okay. The graces and the races between Protestants and Catholics. Okay. There's a grace that connects us, but race disconnects us. Okay. In talking to him privately and personally, I won the 1994 Catholic Los Angeles Diocese Catholic Christian Education Award in 1994.
Wow.
As a Baptist preacher.
Wow.
That was, if there was no other signal, looking back over the 30 years of ministry that I have enjoyed, there's no other signal. That was the telling moment that this is what I was born to do. And that journey started for me somewhere around 17 years old. I can remember the moment in church where at 12 years old, I started thinking, what if I become a preacher? And how can I play baseball and be a preacher? Well, my mother settled that argument within myself very quickly because I had advanced to be able to play on an advanced baseball team. And the coach came over and told my mother, hey, I want Tyron to travel with the team. And my mother says, I only have one question. Now I'm hiding in the house, eavesdropping on the conversation. And her only question was, does he have to play on Sunday? I knew it was going to be her question. And as soon as she said it, my coach got tears in his eyes. I'm in the closet hiding with tears in my eyes because I knew at that very moment my baseball career was over. And over the next 3 years, my ministry, my hunger and my thirst for ministry began to pick up. It just out of nowhere, it was like she ended this and it started that. And I'm like 12 years old. So by the time I'm 15, there's no doubt in my mind, I'm going to be a preacher. I just don't know when, where, or how. I go to high school and I realize, okay, I don't want to just be a regular preacher. If I have the attention, if I can go into the Catholic Church and do things like this, I don't want to just be regular. I want to do something massive. I want to be on the level of Martin Luther King at that point in time. Prior to meeting you, Professor, it was Jasper Williams. I wanted the C.L. Franklin. And even my father-in-law comes up because he's one of my favorite preachers at the time prior to meeting him. So I'm like, Bishop Paul Morton, I want to be on this level. And, you know, it was almost like the Lord started birthing an anointed aspiration in me. And next thing I know, here I am.
The Lord not only birthed it, but he gave you the passion, your mom, your family, and God gave you the passion to develop who you are. And you have reached that pinnacle.
Yes, sir.
So I applaud you for that.
Bless
I applaud you. Let me ask you a question. Can you describe, this may seem like a crazy question, but I thought I would ask you if you can describe some of your scripture research ideas and how your findings have improved learning for young folks of color.
Wow. That's a good one. So let's start back. Scripture research ideas.
And how your findings can improve learning or have improved learning for young folks of color or improve their life.
Well, I will go for learning and then let it go over into life. And deep in my heart, somewhere at some point in time, I do have some kind of a school, an institute, or something brewing in me. I mean, now, first of all, you cannot go to UC Berkeley and not come out with this global mindset of learning and how learning shapes your life. And so I love teaching. I love preaching, but I think I really love to teach. I love the African-American experience of preaching. I will say in my presentation, I'm radical.
Okay.
I don't know if Paul Messiah would let me preach.
Absolutely, we would. We would love your fire and your passion, and your knowledge would be an inspiration for us. God bless you.
I pursued, and this is where I hope I can answer your question, because I pursued social welfare for my formal training. I did not do seminary, to be very truthful. I did not go to a formal seminary. I stuck with that social welfare professional degree, but I am a self-taught, which would be considered an autodidactic theologian. And so in my office right now, my wife is, the whole pressure of her weight is on my head because I'm surrounded by books. If I take the Golden Gate Bridge off and showed you my office, she would probably shoot me with a water gun. It's books everywhere. I love studying theology, and particularly the original language and the history of the Bible. I love history. And so therefore, I have this unfinished love in my heart that I feel in the next few years we're going to do something about it, because New Orleans has experienced so much trauma in questioning God, like, Lord, why am I here? I know I'm here to provide educational upgrade and perseverance and scholarship to those that are underprivileged, and not just of one age, but all ages. Because a lot of times when we talk about generationalism, we run the risk of leaving out people who need a rebirth, people who need another chance to learn from people of color. And that's so important to me, because when I was working in the professional sector in Los Angeles, I had a stint of working in urban education in a nonprofit. And my studies showed I had a hard time, Professor, because my job was to help high school students get into upper division colleges and things of that nature. And I could find students who could do English all day long, but I couldn't find students who could do math on a collegiate level in the inner city.
That's right.
And a part of the problem was, after I did statistical research, I interviewed, I talked to deans, academic deans, and the problem was that there was a language barrier.
That's right.
A deficiency. There were not math teachers that could break down mathematics that would be required to get you into a college on a level that a student from an urban area could understand and advance. And people ignored it, and they're just making that up. But the truth of the matter is, I believe that was so pervasive across the board that you wouldn't see people from the hood, if you will, advance beyond secondary education and get into higher education, et cetera, et cetera. And so I want to launch a school at some point in time that can help people theologically, help them as it relates to the basics of English, help them even with business practices. Because in pastoring, a lot of times people go to seminary and learn to preach and learn to do all of these theological things, but there's no business training. A lot of young pastors ask me, hey, what is one thing you would recommend? I'd say go somewhere, learn how to work Excel, and learn how to do a spreadsheet, learn how to do financials, corporate financials, audited financials. Because when you get into the boardroom of your church, they're not going to ask you what thus saith the Lord. They're going to ask you to analyze your financials.
That's right.
And that's when the hard stuff starts. And so I want to help our people really to be better and to advance into another dimension of what God has for us as a people within the body of Christ.
God bless you. I am so grateful. I have just two more questions. I'm so grateful that I've had a chance to see you, to interview you. What a remarkable man you are, a professional and theologian. It was interesting that you came up with the exact same analysis. I was attacked publicly for saying that math was prejudicial. I said that math was prejudicial to people of color because the people who teach math at higher institutions don't find a way to connect the reality of the core of mathematics to their life. So what it does is that it keeps people of color thinking that they are illiterate. In reality, they're not illiterate. Because my argument is that if you could take a mother who was on welfare, and that woman on welfare could take care of a house of 9 or 10 kids, or 8 or 9 kids, she is the great mathematician. She's figured out. The point is that she just doesn't know how to take what she's doing and put it into calculation terms that are used in the institutions. I mean, I received so many attacks, and in fact, the leaders of my district called. It was a big old ugly thing, but I stood firm on the fact that math itself is wonderful. Students that are students of African American heritage are brilliant, but however, we have a language, we have a socialization, we have a dialect that is systematically ours, and to assume that people are not smart because they've grown up with their language skills, but you don't have to change your language skills, is prejudice.
It is absolutely
100% prejudice.
And I even take that mindset to the pulpit, because on any given Sunday, I will be preaching to political politicians, PhDs, judges, you name it, without, and some of the categories are escaping me, educators. Mm-hmm. And then I'll be preaching to somebody who, they don't have a PhD, they just barely have a GED. And in a 25-minute presentation, I have to be able to translate from the hills all the way to the hood in a way where we all meet at the cross in the middle.
That's right.
And I think the same thing should be the case in academics, but what we are seeing now, especially with the removal of DEI, in my day, the removal of affirmative action, if you remember, that was Cuban.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, when you remove these things, now you're taking programs away that would attract people who are polylingual. This is a language barrier, and I believe that racially, academics will keep that language so high that they know it becomes a complete barrier. to a well-qualified student being properly educationally matriculated to be able to go to another level in academics. It just makes you have to work 10 times harder. And they know it's almost like putting a Rottweiler at the gate of entry and knowing good and well the people who have to go through that gate are scared of dogs.
That's right.
So you'll never even attempt, you say, I can't do it, so never mind, forget it. And so I'm really motivated. I have a grandbaby. I have nieces and nephews that they have to grow up in this system. And I want to be a part of the solution. I want to be a part of the outcome and the answer and the result that can help them to soar into higher heights. And so, if there's no door there, I'm that guy. I'll cut a hole in the wall and create a door. No seats at the table. Let's change the shape of the table so it's more seats at a different shape, so we can really help our people get to where they need to be. That's the UC Berkeley in me. That's the protester.
That's right. You know what, Bishop Robinson, your philosophies simply support human equality. Yes. I believe that DEI and equality are sort of interconnected. I'm not going to go into the whole discussion of it, but I do strongly believe that the heart of education is about the heart of compassion. And that and the heart of education is the heart of compassion, because the heart of compassion means that you care and you're willing to do whatever it takes in order to educate and to teach. But when you have a standard, I tell people all the time, in fact, I'm going to be on a podcast myself tomorrow, another one, and this is I'm interviewing for someone else. And I always say this, that the role of the social justice advocate, the teacher, the PhD scholar, the master's, whatever level you're at, the goal is for you to share information and to be able to change lives. Whatever that takes, do it. It's not a formality. A classroom, a structure, is not what determines your compassion level. Your level of compassion should be more important than your level of trying to show that you're smart. And what happens with a lot of people who are scholars and PhD scholars and master scholars is that they spend too much time trying to be brilliant and smart themselves, but not spending enough time trying to learn how to communicate. Having said that, I want to thank you for having communicated so much of your heart, so much of what God has given you. And my last question to you is that could you just share any thoughts and ideas you would like to communicate and discuss some of your future goals, projects, and innovations? Wow.
First of all, let me say in conclusion, thank you so very much for having me. This has been such a cathartic conversation for me. It is almost dream come true. I've watched you interview others, and I'm just so grateful to be here.
Thank you. God bless you.
Yes. One of the future things that we're looking to do here in the city of New Orleans, we're actually engaged in some building projects right now for a parent-child center in the east end of the city, and as well as a community center in what is called Uptown. And it'll be able to house some of these programs that I have talked about in both locations. And so keep us in prayer, and we'll keep you informed on how those things are taking place, because it actually will be a place where we can be able to teach our young people theatrical arts and things of that nature. And then I push for the educational piece. And really personally, I believe this year, like no other, it will be a year that I launch my ministry as an author. I have several unpublished works that are finished that I'm looking to put into the marketplace. One dealing with grief that I wrote during the pandemic. So many people were dealing with the losses of loved ones, family and friends. Book entitled Mourn Now or Grieve Later. I've written of my journey to succession, the Pathfinder, Succeeding a Legend. And it's really just chronicling the 3-year journey that brought me into this era of the church. And then I have a couple of other books that serve as my theological works, which are just analysis from my feeble position of certain books of the Bible relevant to every day. So I have about 5 or 6 literary works that I'm looking to release. And that's my personal goal, to really get into being an author. And ultimately, upon retirement, within the next 15 years, because I've been doing this 25 years, I wouldn't mind becoming a professor at some point and teaching on higher education level.
Wow. Bishop Tyron Delbert Robinson, I want to thank you from my heart to yours for you taking the time, and for your communities allowing you to have the time to come on this podcast. Please share a wonderful hello to Bishop Morton and his lovely wife, and then give a special hug to that lovely lady in your life, your wife and your children. God bless you. Thank you so much. UC Berkeley, when you went to UC Berkeley and left, they actually allowed a genius to travel, and that genius that traveled was yourself. You traveled through so many spaces, but you have a wonderful, wonderful heart of love and compassion, and you have done so much with your life. You are really an icon, and I tell you, as a professor, there is no other greater joy for me as a senior than to see a young man such as yourself succeed. So as you like to help African American men, you have helped me, because that's a goal and journey of mine. I love you dearly. God bless you. And thank you once again for your time.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you. Talk with you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.